What is up, guys? I am back to fill you in from where I left off on my recovery videos. I think I left off about 7.5 months, and I'm going to fill you in from 8 months to a year. So this is going to be my 1 year video here. I got my notes right here. So where we left off in the last video, I was doing calisthenics, wasn't hitting the weights yet, wasn't doing continuous runs for more than 3/4 of a mile. It was kind of run, walk, run, walk. So the run, walk stuff continued all the way up into a year. I never ran more than a mile until after a year. So between 8 months and a year, it's still run walk for me because that was the most comfortable for me. And like I had explained before, it wasn't painful, but if it felt weird, I just stopped. I tried to use as much common sense as possible, be as risk averse as possible. And if I felt anything out of the ordinary, I stopped. And I can tell you, even after these workouts, these, run 3/4 of a mile, walk a quarter, those intervals, man, when I laid down for bed that night, I was tired. I was out, and I slept. I remember sleep being really good and waking up in the morning still being a little bit tired. So working out didn't really change from the last video. I did dip into the weights a little bit between 8 months and a year. I started doing things that didn't involve my back as much. So bench press, curls, talk about leg curls, quadricep curls and hamstring curls, overhead press with just the bar, some shoulder shrugs with just the bar. So I did test myself out a little bit, but didn't go heavy on anything. I was able to, so as most people know at this point that watch my videos, I was, in law enforcement on the street for a while, and now I'm kind of in, the investigation section of law enforcement. But I was able to qualify with my firearm, which includes moving and shooting, shooting while kneeling, shooting in the prone position. And if anybody knows anything about shooting, for you to have back surgery, you're in some compromising positions when your arms are toward a target holding a weapon, or you're knelt down, with your arms out, holding a weapon pointed toward a target. It can be a little bit compromising. You do have to use your core a little bit, and you don't realize that until you have to have back surgery. But I was able to qualify. Everything was fine, had no pain. I was still trying to figure out my body, how my body moves and everything. So it was maybe a little bit herky-jerky, but my scores didn't drop. Everything was fine as far as qualifying. And then the use of force training. So like I told you, I was off for about 3 months before going back to work. And when you go back to work, you have to qualify and you have to do your use of force training. And so the use of force training, you get trained on things like, intermediate weapons like your baton, your OC spray, and then your holds, your controlled takedowns, ground fighting techniques, that type of stuff. And with, with use of force training, I didn't have any issues. Now, I know I was scared that something was going to pop in my back the entire time. And, I had previously talked with my instructor about, and he knew the situation, with my back and everything. So we took some things slowly. We worked up to a faster pace. And, when you do these controlled takedowns, it's not just me doing it on other people. Then we reverse roles. They do it on me as well. So I did get taken down, slammed to the ground a little bit, did a little bit of ground fighting stuff. And like I said, I was worried the whole time about my back, but there was no issue at all. When we get up around 10 months, I had an overseas trip. My sister had gotten married in Italy, and a bunch of my family members flew out there for the trip. And the trip lasted about 3 weeks, close to a month. We were in Europe. So to pack for a 3-week trip, I had 2 suitcases and a little carry-on bag, all kinds of stuff, heavy stuff. The bags were, almost at max capacity. And it wasn't like we flew over there and just relaxed the whole time. This was one of those vacations where, I don't know if I'm going to be back overseas in Europe. I don't know when. So we want to do as much sightseeing as possible. So I'm talking about, I flew from Texas over to, God, where'd I fly out? Texas over to Atlanta, and then flew overseas and landed in Italy. And, the first flight was a couple hours, but that second flight was like a 13-hour flight. And I remember sitting there on the plane, a couple hours in, everything's fine. And then when you get closer to 8 hours, 10 hours, I was in the seat and I didn't feel like I could get up. I was just like planted in the seat, and I can feel that my back, there's so much pressure on it. And it wasn't something I was worried about, being hurt or crippled or anything like that. It was just, I knew like when I try to get up and start moving, it's going to take a while to loosen this thing up. So it was one of those things where it was kind of painful, but it wasn't a pain where I'm like, oh, my back's screwed up. It was a pain where I'm like, okay, this is going to take a while to loosen up. So yeah, so after the 13-hour flight, we had one day where we kind of, got all of our stuff over to an Airbnb, hung out for a little bit, and then the next day started the kind of the hectic travel where, we're taking Ubers places, we're getting on trains, stuff like that. And we moved city to city. So that means taking all your stuff. So, rolling 2 suitcases, getting in on a train, fitting in the luggage compartment, and there's 100 people behind you. You don't have time to sit there and, hold everybody up. It's grab your bag, put it in the luggage department, and you're not really even, I wasn't really even thinking about my back. So that kind of increased my confidence a little bit to where I thought, you know what, there's not a whole lot of things I can't do right now, because those bags were heavy. And you don't think about it. You just pick it up and you put it where, it wasn't something where I'm like, oh no, my back, I don't know if I can pick it up. You just pick it up and you put it, because there's a million people watching, there's a million people waiting for you. So there was, the moving from train to train, loading your luggage, unloading your luggage, and, you're walking the entire time too. I do remember a couple times sitting down on those trains and just, just so glad to be sitting down, just like, oh man, like this feels so good. And it felt so good on my back to just not be walking for a second, just be sitting down and not dragging around luggage and having to pick it up here and just all the pain of carrying luggage around, Europe. So let me refer to my notes here. So on that trip, like I said, we did a lot of sightseeing. So, I was walking more than I had ever walked before. We were walking sometimes, 8, 9, 10 miles a day. And not all of that was sightseeing. Sometimes my wife and I would just go out and walk because I wanted to go walk for my back and to just go see the city, So we walked a lot. Sometimes we walked several hours, 6, 7 hours a day we were out walking. So again, that increased my confidence that, there's not a whole lot that I can't do. Just I was able to walk and it didn't hurt. Now, at the end of the day, I was tired. I remember some of those days going home, going to bed, and waking up the next morning and just feeling like my eyes are just matted or glued shut. Like I was still so tired from all that walking because I hadn't really pushed it to that point. That was the most walking I'd done. And, especially with that luggage and stuff, like maybe if I didn't have a repaired back, I'd be tired. But with the repaired back, I was extremely tired. But that trip was probably the source of my confidence now. Before that trip, I wasn't really sure what I was capable of. You see the videos where I'm kind of cautiously working out and doing some stuff, but that trip was one of these deals where you don't have time to think about it. Grab your stuff, put it here, 50-pound bag or whatever, and everything was fine with my back. And, although it's normal to worry about it, I worried about it the entire time, and everything was fine. I came out the other end with, no issues at all with it. And I think that's where I mentally turned the corner. You can see my videos, I was very positive. I've always been very positive, and I'm still very positive. But that was one of those moments where I'm like, okay, I'm actually starting to believe this. Like, I'm fixed. I feel like I'm fixed, and I feel like I'm durable. So, obviously, the trip was almost a month long, so that's going to be around month 11. And when you get to a year, not much had changed from there. Like I said, I'm still cautiously working out, still not going over a mile. It's still mostly calisthenics, but I did mix some weights in there. And what I can tell you is that I felt in my back a couple times while lifting the weights is weird, just weird feelings. Not like pain, but you know, I'll get done bench pressing or doing curls or whatever you have, and you know, something in my, like, it felt like muscle pain in the left side of my back, and I'm like, I better stop, go home, rest, everything's fine the next day. You know, then I'll feel it, you know, down maybe like toward my pelvis, and then I'm like, okay, I better stop, go home, rest, everything's fine. And then eventually all that stuff went away. So I feel like that was kind of a feeling out process for my back, to where, you know, it's like, well, I haven't felt this in a while, and it gives you a little pain or whatever, some discomfort, and then it goes away, you know? So I had a lot of weird feelings, and they're hard to describe. And yes, sometimes you feel like, oh man, maybe I overdid it. But I never had the feeling that, okay, I screwed my back up again. Never had that feeling. So if you're out there and you're having weird pains that go away, I think if it were me, I would take some time before I thought something was screwed up. But I feel like there's pain where you know, I screwed something up, and I never had that. So yeah, that for me is my journey from 8 months to a year. And most of it was that overseas trip, you know, dragging luggage around. You know how much of a pain that is, not having a surgically repaired back, dragging luggage everywhere. You're always on a schedule. You got to be here, you got to be there. It's not like we were just strolling around town, like we had to be somewhere. So that gave me a lot of confidence to keep moving forward. And like I always say, guys, if you got something out of this video, like, comment, subscribe. I'll put my email in the description. So if you do need to contact me for some reason, and a lot of people have, and we've been able to talk about certain things, whether you're feeling a certain way, whether you have questions that I haven't answered on here, please feel free to email me. I try to get back with people within a couple days, and I usually do. So that's going to be it for my 1-year video. And as always, guys, thanks for the support. And I really appreciate you watching the channel. And I hope you get something out of it. So I will see you next time. Thank you.